communication tool, because I've been hearing lots around LSEC programs, stuff that the DfE are rolling out. We weren't part of any LSEC program in Oxfordshire, and we've kind of done this off our own back because of an identified need in primary schools and early years children. So I'll just take you through, and we've also got our experts here from GL Assessments who provide the WellComm tool. And then their details can be shared as well if anyone would like to follow up with them about the tool. So yes, I'm Caroline Kelly, and I'm the head of joint commissioning here in Oxfordshire County Council and the ICB. And then we've got Elliot, if you can introduce yourself.
I'd love to, thank you. Education consultant here at GL Assessment and Renaissance.
Thank you. And Cecilia.
Yeah, hi, I'm Cecilia. I'm a product sales specialist at Renaissance GL Assessment.
Thank you. Okay, so over to Elliot. So what is WellComm?
Thank you. I'm going to give you quite a top level kind of view of what WellComm is, really, kind of the nuts and bolts of it. And Cecilia's going to give a little bit more detail about kind of that follow-up, kind of the assessment, what it looks like, and the intervention sort of side of it. So I'm going to sort of treat everyone as if they know very little about WellComm, really, and just give, as I say, that very, very top level view. So WellComm is a speech and language screening tool. It comes as two versions. I'm going to work on the bullet points slightly, but in kind of a bit of a weird order. So it does come in two versions. It's paper and it's digital. The digital version, as it kind of as the name suggests, it digitizes all aspects of that. So the key parts really being the assessment and the intervention, following on from the sort of the reporting tool aspect. The paper version, still very, very popular with schools, groups and local authorities. It's a little bit more old school, I suppose, a bit more pen and paper style, but it is worth noting that you can bolt on that reporting tool onto the end of it. In terms of age range, WellComm in a very general sense covers from 6 months through to 11 years old. The digital version gives you that full range, whereas if you're using a paper toolkit, then that is split into early years, which is 6 months through to 6 years, and then primary, which is 6 years through to 11. The very vague, broad kind of overview, I suppose, of WellComm really is that it's excluding that kind of reporting aspect, because I'm going to include that within the assessment. It's an assessment, and then built into that, or following on from that, is the intervention with the big book of ideas, which is what Cecilia is going to mention as well. In terms of assessment, depending upon the need of the child, you're looking at around about sort of 15-ish minutes per section that the child is assessed with. One of the really key things though about WellComm, one of the things I'm really I think really important to sort of mention at this point, is in terms of the ease of assessment, really kind of within WellComm. We do have training videos, on-demand training videos, getting started webinars, and all sorts of range of things which will help people kind of get up and running, particularly with the digital version. But the really key thing is that from our point of view, there is no formal training required for someone to basically be able to carry out a WellComm assessment. Really what we're looking for is that person carrying out the assessment either has knowledge of the child or access to someone who has knowledge of the child, and really the ability to read. If you have those things, then you can really carry out a WellComm assessment. And so I just want to make that point really, that as it says there, you've got everyone within a setting can really carry that out. It could be teaching assistant, teachers, it could be the SENCO, childminders. It really is open to everyone in that universal sense. At that point, I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Cecilia, who's going to give you a little bit more information.
Thanks for that, Elliot. So the graduated response model that you can see here, I'm sure will be familiar to some of you who are already sort of teachers working in schools and things like that. But applying that graduated response model, WellComm can play a crucial role in really helping to facilitate appropriate next steps and support for learners. And we hear a lot from schools and early year settings that, you know, they don't just want the assessment, but they also want, you know, that kind of next step so that practitioners can actually support those children. So the first stage is to assess, and using WellComm to screen all children following the guidance will really give you invaluable insights into the strengths and barriers that children may face with speech, language and communication needs in your settings. Next follows the plan stage, and that tiered approach to intervention should be informed by your own knowledge of each child, as Elliot's just said, and this in turn will impact the level of intervention which may be beneficial. We will discuss the tiered approach to next steps on the next slide, but it is vital that the outcomes from the screening and the relevant targets, which are found within the Big Book of Ideas, and that's either as a big paper version or as a digital version that can be shared with parents, give those next steps for groups and individuals. And during this stage, that collaboration and consistent approach with children, parents, carers, or external specialists is really key to successfully embedding the activities both in and outside your setting. And then the final stage is obviously to review the impact of those adaptations to universal curriculum design and interventions. And at this stage, it is important to really reflect on whether that support has had the desired outcome, what further changes need to be made to interventions and adaptations to curriculum design, and are there learners who received interventions yet their actual recent evidence within school is still a concern? And if so, for some learners, it may be appropriate to consider referral to external specialists. And at this stage, it's really important to note that before reassessing children who have achieved amber or red scores, which I'm sure Caroline will go into a lot more detail in a moment, having seen her slides, on their initial assessment, that 3 months is left between those two assessment periods to allow, obviously, for the impact of intervention to really take hold. Are you all right to go on to the next slide? Thanks, Caroline. So here we've obviously got that tiered approach to support, and no matter the starting point for children's speech, language and communication needs, we really need to consider that tiered approach. So for all learners in blue, practitioners should promote that development of skills for all children at that universal level, ensuring that all children are benefiting from those positive models in language-rich learning environments. At the next level, tier 1 shown in green, targeted activities which support the development of specific areas of speech, language and communication should be planned and embedded within teaching practices. This could be achieved by adapting activities from the Big Book of Ideas and delivering these at whole class levels. Being a former primary school teacher myself, what's fantastic about the Big Book of Ideas is that up in the primary ages of the toolkit, there are so many fantastic interventions that really do support the literacy curriculum when we're looking at grammar, what a child uses to understand, vocabulary as well. So there's lots of really nice activities in there for children who are on that green score, and you can also use the sections from the age above, which is obviously stretching and challenging them as well. So at tier 2, this is where children would have targeted intervention for groups, or at individual level, where it can be planned and carried out using those activities from the Big Book of Ideas, which are specifically already given to you on the report for that particular child. And we've got group planning screens that tell you which children have very similar needs from the Big Book of Ideas, because we appreciate capacity to do one-to-one within a school setting can be, isn't always available. And then children with these groups may also, with those amber scores, may also have those sort of difficulties. So it's vital that specific strengths and challenges are not only identified using WellComm, but other contextual information such as observations and conversations with parents and carers as well. And then finally, tier 3 is to be considered for those children with red scores. So these learners will have significant difficulties with speech, language and communication and should therefore be referred to a specialist. However, as we are well aware, the referral process for a speech and language therapist can take time. So it is crucial that these children access support through the activities from the Big Book of Ideas to get those targeted interventions embedded while that sort of referral is in situ. And we, when we speak to sort of various sort of educational settings that we work with, there is lots of evidence to suggest that in some instances, because we're supporting at that point on reassessment, that gap is actually narrowed and they can sometimes move up to amber, no longer requiring that specialist support. So it's really, really important that every step that we are supporting either stretching, or with language levels above, or through those big book of ideas from sections below as well. And back to you, Caroline.
Lovely, thank you. It was really helpful in terms of the theory behind WellComm and how it's actually used. And what I'm going to do is then show you how it's used in reality. So just a little bit about Oxfordshire. So we have some areas of deprivation and high levels of rurality, as well as a city location with 2 big universities. And we are seeing a widening gap between disadvantaged pupils and their peers. So we have a lot of settings. We have 419 daycare, 381 childminders, 7 maintained nurseries, 148 schools with nursery classes, and 272 primary schools overall in Oxfordshire. So we originally looked at the WellComm in response really to the impact of the COVID lockdowns. So we were seeing children attending early years settings with hardly any communication at all. And we were seeing a huge spike in referrals into speech and language therapy. Our average wait, it was around 2 years. It is coming down slightly in Oxfordshire. So it was very much to support children who were delayed due to the impact of COVID. There is also a newly formed strategic early language pathway group, which is supporting us to create an early language pathway. We were also peer reviewed in 2022 with recommendations around meeting need earlier. We also got some support financially from Public Health to support our early language pathway. And there was a commitment to providing more universal support, particularly from our speech and language therapy service and our advisory teacher services for both early years and primary. We also had our SEND local area inspection in 2023, where the report was saying that children were waiting too long for help for speech and language communication needs, and we had a priority action plan as a result. So WellComm very much has helped us be able to address the priorities in our action plan, which we've just had a monitoring visit on. So like I said, we are developing an early language pathway, and that's around identifying what support is offered at universal, targeted and specialist levels. And in Oxfordshire, we were finding that the specialist area within speech and language therapy was that the demand was absolutely saturating the capacity, and more needed to be done early on. So that's where WellComm came in. So how have we used it in Oxfordshire? So like I said, early years went first. That rolled out in 2021 following COVID pandemic, and that is rolled out to PVI settings and nurseries and childminders. They rolled out the paper tool because the digital tool was not created at that time. So some of the learning we've taken from that was it's great, easy to use. However, the data collection has been difficult because it is a requirement for them for early year settings to then use something separate to record the outcomes of their assessments and interventions. So that was addressed in the primary school by moving to the digital tool, which does it all automated. So everything is recorded on the digital tool, and then I'm able to see the reports, which I'll go through in a second. Both settings required a language lead in a setting who would then be the point of contact, the person who's trained on the tool, the person who comes to all the training that we provide in the council, and also to be able to teach others in their setting as well. So primary school, we launched WellComm Digital in March this year, and we had 45 schools sign up. I was expecting about 20, so we had a really good response to that. We have funded this in the county council. We have funded it through the high needs block. And so far, we have seen 1,500 children screened as of from November 25, which is an amazing result. And we're so pleased with that. And what we advise is that all children in year one are screened, and any new children enrolling at any age, and if needs change or we see actually the child is not where they should be in their older classes, then we also say, yeah, use the screen for them, use this tool for them too. And yes, like Elliot said, there is free training from GL Assessments, and anyone using the tool must complete that training, and we provide additional training which covers different aspects of speech language communication, cognition and learning, and that's delivered from the advisory teacher service and our speech language therapist as well. So let's look at some of the reports then. So this is as of from November, and this is what you'll see when you open up your cluster. So I have a cluster of all the schools that I can look at, and it will tell me lots of different data. So we have, this is the data on all children who have been screened. This is initial screening. So we've got 1,585, and then it's broken down between how many scored as red, amber and green. So the majority are green, which is great. And then it will break it down by gender. So obviously there's higher need with boys than there are girls in Oxfordshire at the moment. And then this one is really interesting. So if they score amber, well, if they score green, the child is where they should be developmentally wise, as per their actual age. If they score amber, they are 1 year below their actual age. And if they score red, they are more than 2 years below the actual age in terms of development. So we're seeing children in primary school who are scoring 5 years below their actual age. And that's quite worrying, actually, that we've got children attending school with absolutely no speech, language and communication at all. I don't know if that's a surprise to anyone. When I fed this back to our therapy team, they were not surprised at all. They are seeing children like that being referred to therapy. And this tool is great at identifying those and actually doing something about it in the classroom, rather than waiting for your therapist to get in touch 2 years down the line. And then there is data around their needs. So we've got a breakdown of different needs. So it's not surprising that we've got a lot of reds for children with speech, language, and communication needs. N is no educational need recorded. ASD, 40% of reds, only 40% green. K is the child is recorded as SEN but has no EHCP, so quite a high prevalence there. E is the child is recorded and and does have an EHCP, so that's not surprising really that there's a high prevalence of reds for that cohort, again with communication and interaction as well, and cognition and learning high numbers. We are seeing more children who are in receipt of pupil premium scoring more in the reds and ambers, and less than 50% green. Again, you know, we are doing a lot of work around tackling inequalities in Oxfordshire. What we might do in future rollouts is roll this out to schools where there is a high prevalence of children on pupil premium potentially, and those who perhaps are not scoring high on their Ofsted inspections as well. We also have quite a high number of children who score as red who have English as an additional language. Now, from what I understand, the assessment is actually done in English. So that is not surprising really that we're getting a high prevalence of those scores red and amber, and that's something that I did want to talk to colleagues in GL assessments about, as to whether there is different language options for those children who don't have English as their first language. We're learning all the time, so this is why we've done a pilot. So in terms of age breakdowns, so the tool will tell you what age the child is, how many they've scored at that age range, and if they're red, amber, or green. So we've said all children to be screened in year 1, so that's your 4 and 5-year-olds. So as you can see, that's the highest number of children that were screened. But we are seeing quite a few in older age groups, right up to 9 years old. And that's where we are seeing additional needs and where the tool may be of benefit for those children. Again, younger children, and that's mainly because that school has an early years setting, has a reception class in their school. So we've said, if you want to use the tool for them, by all means, crack on. So that's what they've done, which is lovely. This is the progress report. So you get 2 reports. You get a report for all the children who have been screened, and you can choose your timescale. So whether you look, in the last 3 months, 6 months, a year, or throughout the entire time it started. And then you can also request a progress report. So where Cecilia was saying that if a child has scored red or amber, they are then to follow the Big Book of Ideas, and the tool will actually tailor the interventions according to their need, which is really important. It means that teachers and TAs are not flicking through a Big Book of Ideas, finding the right tools for them. The online version does it for them. And we're seeing progress in those children scored red and amber. So as you can see, we've now got only 17% against 28 scored as red. Amber is pretty much static, but we are seeing more greens. So what we're expecting is that children make progress in amber into green, and children who make progress into red then go up to amber. So it'd be good to do some case studies to look at, a child that has scored red, can they ever get to green just through using this tool? That would be quite an interesting thing to look at. Again, we look at progress in age ranges. So we are seeing the most amount of progress in 4 and 5-year-olds. But I think that's mainly due to that is the target age that we are aiming the tool at. But it's really great to see actually in 5-year-olds now we've only got 10% in red, which is brilliant. And they're making the most progress out of all the age groups is the 5-year-olds. Again, there's progress broken down by different identified need. And this is really interesting. So we're seeing great progress in ASD. So actually no reds in their second assessment. So that's great that we're getting such a good outcome for those children who are recognised as having autism. Social, emotional, and mental health needs, their needs are coming down, but we're still seeing only 50% scored as green, but less red, so that's a good result. Again, speech, language, and communication, huge increase for those children. So they're really seeing the benefit of this tool when they are applying the Big Book of Ideas. And what teachers and TAs are saying to us is, this is not something that they have to pull the child out of the classroom and do this separately. They can do that with all the other children in their class. And what they're doing is just embedding that into their lesson plan and their curriculum. So that is great to hear, because teachers, they have enough on their plate, and they keep saying to us in Oxfordshire, please don't give us any more to do. So this works well with what they should already be delivering, and it's that high quality first teaching approach. So cognition and learning has stayed static for that cohort. Be interesting to know how many children that actually referred to, which I can find out. And the child has an EHCP, actually they're all green. So that was really good to see. And then K, the child has them, but no EHCP. So we've seen those children go from red to amber, which is lovely to see. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the rollout for those who are interested in how we did that. So very much targeted on engagement. We engage with schools in multiple different ways and early year settings. You absolutely need to target your leaders, so head teachers. is a great way to create buy-in, and then they would then select who in the school or setting needs to then be their language lead, and then we work closely with the language lead. If you are working for a local authority, consider buying the tool for all of your settings or a pilot cohort. It's not as expensive as what people might think. Go and chat to Jill Assessments. There are various discounts if you buy in bulk as well. And that will create buy-in, especially if a school doesn't know how much work is involved. Will it actually make a difference for their children? Will the teachers and TAs actually be able to use it? Okay, so if you fund it, then you've got a better chance of it being used. So we also did things like newsletters, schools news, training as well, CPD sessions. Also, our speech and language therapists, advisory teachers, and health visitors have all been pushing the tool as well. And actually, health visitors are trained in using WellComm, which is great to see. So feedback from early year settings. So really nice bit of feedback there from an early year setting. So each week they take an area of focus and use that within the planning and circle time to support children's development. Here's another quote. So this has had a really positive impact on our children's language skills, and those children who took part in these activities are seeing real improvement in their WellComm scores and communication language skills in general. They really enjoy using the tool and they find it helpful. I ran a survey for schools on using the tool in July. We've got a 4.5 out of 5-star rating for the use of assessing children, and there are some quotes there from schools, which I won't go through. You can read that. We also asked, please rate the effectiveness and overall ease of use for delivering the Big Book of Ideas. We again had 4.5 stars out of 5. Like I said, these interventions can be incorporated in the classroom. They don't need to remove the child from the classroom, but there is options for one-to-one small group work if needed. They also found it easy to print off the ideas and pass to staff who are completing activities, or you can use a digital screen to do that. And also help them to think of activities within continuous provision of practice as well as the interventions. So in terms of our lessons learned from rolling the tool out, we started in March. There was a bit of a delay actually. We did want to start in September last year, but there was a delay. So I would recommend starting this at the start of an academic year. Because we've had some schools saying, oh, we wanted to wait until the next academic year. So advise that. Make sure that the language leads fully understand what is the requirement for them. Sometimes language leads have multiple roles, some of the SENCO, so have a lot on their plate. So we need to make sure that they are supported. They must complete the online training because it does tell you everything you need to know about how to use it. If you are rolling the tool out for early years settings and primary schools where a primary school does both, make it clear that you want primary school age children as well as early years children screened. Some just thought it was for early years only. So that was a bit of learning there. The best way to use the tool is the WellComm digital tool. You can also buy the paper packs as well. If using the digital version, is less preferred. You do need 2 screens for that. So usually a screen in an iPad works really well, but you can have the books as well. But please get your settings to record using digital so you can get those nice whizzy reports that I've showed you. Make sure your head teacher's on board and link in with SEND, advisory teacher, school improvement, therapy services to maximise your success. So there are much wider benefits of using the WellComm tool. So the new Ofsted inspection framework, this will be a great tool to demonstrate inclusivity and meeting needs earlier in the new schools Ofsted inspection framework. It supports a graduated response, graduated approach and reasonable adjustments. It's seen as best practice. And we got really good feedback from our SEND local area inspection. And also it's very similar to the LSEC projects that are funded by the DfE. And this is my last slide. So looking at going forward, we want to do more we want to analyse the referrals from speech and language to understand where they're coming from in terms of schools, have their referrals reduced as a result of using WellComm. We want to embed into ordinary available toolkits, do more peer support with language leads. We want to roll out more schools and maybe target those with poor Ofsted ratings and those under school improvement. And there is talk about developing a secondary school tool as well. And that's the end of my presentation. So happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and colleagues from GL Assessment as well. Really interesting, really good. I really like seeing that you're using the data in an aggregated form to sort of inform your wider priorities. I'm really pleased to see that. And the other thing that really jumped out at me was being able to embed it in the classroom. Not only is that easier for teachers, we know children and young people, don't want to be out of the classroom if they don't have to be. Makes them stand out. I have a couple of questions. I will give other people a chance first, though. I didn't see anything in the chat. I didn't see any hands up, but has anybody got any questions for Caroline or colleagues? Just take your spotlight off, Caroline. Patricia. Oh, we see you, but we don't hear you.
Patricia.
Sorry, it takes a while. Question, I have a lot of questions, but I think the first one for Caroline, what made you choose this particular app as opposed to other similar systems such as you said, the ECLAN or the LSEC or a few other apps? So what made you choose this one?
Yeah, we actually did a full options appraisal on all of the tools. So there's Nelly, there's Language Link, Speech Link. We could have developed our own. At the time, GL Assessments were bringing out the digital version, which we really liked. And because early years were already using WellComm, we wanted to be consistent with them, especially as schools have early year settings as well as primary school aged children. It's worked really well. We've actually had some feedback from schools to say that they've built into their transition documents what school where they scored on WellComm in early years to help support that child when they move over to their year one class, which is great. So and it's also really affordable in comparison to lots of other tools.
Fantastic, thank you. Sorry, can I squeeze in one more? This one is for Elliot and Cecilia. So how has the assessment tool been developed with what population? So what was the development of the tool and the choices in terms of the interventions that you chose to include in your Big Ideas book? Is this based on any existing models or is this just a completely new? Does that make sense, the question?
Yeah, I'll go for it. Yeah. So the well, I can't remember the exact year, to be honest, that it was produced in, but it all came about. It was developed by Sandwell and Birmingham NHS. It was developed by speech and language therapists. So I can't comment on exactly the reasoning behind what they chose to do and everything, but obviously it comes with, whilst we're not saying you need to have speech and language qualifications in order to carry out the assessment, it was born from those individuals and from, as I say, Sandwell and Birmingham NHS. So it is backed in that really kind of formal speech and language and kind of that world, if you like, and all of the work that kind of goes into that. So yeah, I don't know if that answers that question for you or not, really.
I wonder if there was an implied element in your question, Patricia, about ensuring the sort of, this maybe comes back to the language question and people who aren't native English speakers, about the cultural elements of speech and language communication, and that maybe behind your question a bit.
It was It was so it was there was an element, and there was an element of professionals or universities or someone that has that actual expertise, so not just plucked from thin air, but like kind of people with the actual expertise just developing these tools for both assessments and interventions. So someone that has professional expertise and best practice and evidence-based practice in mind as well, so that it's an assured sort of tool. Does that make sense? But also, as Philippa says, it kind of it's been validated with different populations and different language speakers, or people with various conditions and so on.
Yeah, I think that's more like the sort of the technical side, and it's probably best to kind of share with you some documents that probably support that question rather than just being sort of able to answer it kind of off the cuff here. So yeah, we can definitely obviously send some things through to Caroline that she can send out to everybody that has a little bit more information around that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Cecilia. We can share those with them with the slides and things as well.
Yeah, it was actually developed by speech and language therapists, just to put that in.
Thanks, Caroline. I can't see any other questions or hands up in the chat, so I'll dive in with mine if that's okay. You've talked about, obviously this is a tool for use in schools and settings, but we know that children and young people make the best progress in terms of therapies when that practice is embedded at home as well. So I wonder, do parents have access to the big book of ideas, or how has this changed conversations between school staff and parents to make sure that they're also living and breathing this stuff too?
GL assessment colleagues, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty of the full WellComm digital version is what many practitioners say they love about it is that all the interventions that are given for a child after that screening process has happened through the big book of ideas are on their report. And from the digital version, you can basically, at a click of a button, click on something that literally asks you to either print or email, and you can email it with parents and carers. So lots of practitioners that we work with say they love it because they can send it to families, they can access it on their phone, they can then practice things in the kitchen while they're cooking with their children or whatever they're doing in the car, those types of things. So it's very easy to access because it's via email and it's on there, on a phone or device. So yeah, that's basically how the big book of activities can be shared with parents. But then the likewise, they can be shared with staff in school who might be working with those children as well. So it's a really nice kind of feature that digital product brings.
Great, thanks, Cecilia. Anne, you can have the last word, then we'll wrap up for a break. There's also a question from Patricia in the chat, which we'll maybe pick up and ask to respond to later. But Anne, over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I just came in to listen to it because we at Lancashire County Council have used WellComm quite a lot. We've had it for years, but really rolled it out across Lancashire in early years settings, childminders, and within our family hubs. And we've seen some absolutely brilliant interactions and results from it. So I was interested to see how other authorities were using it. And we've seen significant reductions in waiting lists for speech and language by offering welcome assessments and dedicated chat, play, read sessions after that for parents and walking sessions. So it's been really beneficial in our local authority, WellComm, and like I said, something we've used for years. So it's nice to hear other authorities and what they're doing with it as well.
That's really great to hear, and maybe it'll be good to email offline and find out a bit more about your successes. So if we can learn from each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that does leave us a little minute to answer Patricia's question in the chat about screening all children rather than just those with SLCN concern.
So we decided to screen all because there are still children who perhaps you might not identify just by working with them. There could be unmet need that the tool will pick up on. So we felt actually it was beneficial to screen all, because then you're identifying need much earlier and able to intervene before it gets to the point where actually it's affecting their day-to-day life and their progress at school.
Thanks, Caroline. Okay, folks, we will wrap up there. And you're going into another break now before your second workshop. Those of you who are attendees and those of you who are speakers, I'll see you back here in 15 minutes. So you've got a break until 12:15, and then please join the other link.
Thank
Lovely.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.